If the Fukushima disaster proves anything, it's that nuclear power is safe. It was the worst disaster imaginable. 3 reactor cores in uncontrolled meltdown. But the design worked. The melted cores were contained. And not a single person was killed. Last month, the World Health Organization released a report that said the impact of radiation on the people who live near the plant will be minimal. People are understandably angry, but nuclear power produces no carbon emissions, and the alternative, burning more coal, will kill tens of thousands through lung disease and cancers. This is a compelling argument, and one the Japanese government is now making itself as it campaigns to switch Japan's other nuclear reactors back on. But it misses out on some vital details about Fukushima. Recently, I went to meet Japan's former Prime Minister, Naoto Kan, the man who was in charge when the disaster struck. He is now an ardent opponent of nuclear power, in large part because of what he experienced in those terrifying days of early March 2011. It is a tale of confusion, incompetence, but most of all, of luck. It could have been much, much worse, he told me. We came very close to losing half the country. We really thought we might have to evacuate Tokyo. Tokyo, a city of 30 million people. I went to the Fukushima plant last month on a press tour, and it was as I stood looking down on the destroyed reactor buildings from the hill above that I had a sudden, and to me shocking, realization. Where the Fukushima reactors now stand, there used to be a cliff rising 30 to 40 metres above sea level. But when they built the plant 40 years ago, they first dug away a large chunk of the cliff and the hillside, lowering the ground close to sea level. Now I understand the plant needs seawater to cool the reactors. But the nagging question wouldn't go away. Why would you deliberately lower the ground on a coast that has repeatedly been hit by earthquakes and tsunamis? It speaks of an industry blinded by arrogance and complacency. And there are plenty of other reasons to think so. The company that owns Fukushima, Tokyo Electric Power Corporation, finally admitted the disaster could and should have been avoided. But for months, Tokyo Electric continued to insist it was not to blame, that the disaster was caused by an unprecedented natural event that couldn't have been predicted. The final detail that is often missed in the story of Fukushima is that it is not over, not by a long way. Inside the contamination zone, thousands of white-clad workers are trying to clean up the radiation. I saw teams removing topsoil from rice fields and putting it into huge black plastic bags. Tens of thousands of buildings are being washed by hand. The wastewater must then also be collected and stored. Bamboo forests are being cut down, leaves, grass and rice straw collected and bagged. And then there are the roads. I was shown the latest invention for sandblasting and vacuuming the road surfaces. All the dust must, of course, be collected. Then somewhere has to be found to store the millions of tons of radioactive waste. But that is not the biggest problem. The real problem is that despite the huge effort and cost, a lot of people now don't want to come back. In one town recently declared safe by the government, only 10% of people have returned. The long-term psychological impact of living with the fear of radiation is only now starting to be measured, but it is already thought to have caused a number of suicides. It is, it turns out, much too early to say that nobody has died because of Fukushima.
Rupert Wingfield Hayes in Japan.